Have you ever looked at a piece of sushi and wondered how humanity decided that raw fish on rice was a good idea? Because the truth is even stranger than that. The story of sushi doesn't begin in a fancy Japanese restaurant. It doesn't begin with salmon, tuna, or chopsticks. It begins with something that sounds like a dare. People intentionally fermenting fish inside barrels of rice for years. And somehow, that strange survival technique evolved into one of the most beloved foods on earth. This is the history of sushi. Around 2,000 years ago, people living along the Mekong River in Southeast Asia, in what is now Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand, had a serious problem. Fish spoiled quickly. There were no refrigerators, no freezers, no ice deliveries. If you couldn't eat your catch immediately, you risked losing it. So people came up with a solution that sounds bizarre by modern standards. They gutted freshwater fish, packed them in salt, buried them beneath cooked rice, placed heavy stones on top, and then waited. Not days, not weeks, months, sometimes years. The salt and fermentation process preserved the fish, much like pickling preserves vegetables today. But here's what makes this so strange. The rice wasn't meant to be eaten. After months of fermentation, people threw the rice away and kept the fish. Imagine baking a cake and throwing away everything except the frosting. The rice wasn't food, it was a preservation tool. Over centuries, this technique spread northward through East Asia and eventually reached Japan. By the 8th century, the Japanese had adopted it and developed a food known as narazushi. And narazushi looked nothing like modern sushi. Forget neatly sliced salmon on pristine white rice. Traditional narazushi was often a whole fish fermented for months with a powerful aroma and an intensely sour flavor. To many modern diners, it would seem closer to an experiment than a delicacy, but it worked. The fish could last far longer than fresh seafood, making it incredibly valuable in a world without refrigeration. For centuries, sushi wasn't really cuisine, it was food preservation. Then something important happened. During the Muromachi period, roughly the 14th and 15th centuries, cooks began shortening the fermentation process. And when they opened the containers earlier, they discovered something unexpected. The rice actually tasted good. It had become tangy, sour, and surprisingly flavorful. For the first time, people started eating the rice together with the fish instead of throwing it away. That single change transformed sushi forever. What had been a storage method was slowly becoming a meal. Fast forward to the early 1800s. Japan was in the Edo period. The city of Edo, modern Tokyo, had become one of the largest cities in the world, with a population exceeding 1 million people. And large cities created demand for one thing above all else: fast food. Workers, merchants, craftsmen, and travelers needed meals that were quick, affordable, and filling. Street food stalls known as yatai appeared throughout the city, and sushi was about to undergo its biggest transformation yet. In the 1820s, a street vendor named Hanaya Yohei introduced a revolutionary idea. Skip the long fermentation process entirely. Take fresh fish caught from Tokyo Bay, place it on top of hand-shaped vinegared rice. Serve it immediately. This became known as nigiri sushi. For the first time, sushi began to resemble what we eat today. And it wasn't luxury food. It was fast food. The pieces were much larger than modern nigiri, closer to the size of a child's palm than the bite-sized pieces served today. Customers would grab a piece, eat it quickly, and continue on with their day. Think less fine dining and more 19th century grab-and-go lunch. Then came an event few people associate with sushi history: an earthquake. In 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake devastated Tokyo. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed and the city was forced to rebuild. As reconstruction began, many sushi vendors who had traditionally operated from outdoor stalls moved into permanent indoor locations. Gradually, sushi transitioned from street food into restaurant dining. It gained tables, menus, and a more refined reputation. A food once eaten standing in the street was becoming something very different. After World War II, sushi began spreading beyond Japan. By the 1960s and 1970s, sushi restaurants were appearing across North America and Europe. There was just one problem. Many Western diners were hesitant to eat raw fish, so chefs adapted. One of the most famous results was the California roll. Using ingredients such as avocado and crab, and often placing the seaweed on the inside, chefs created a version of sushi that felt less intimidating to newcomers. Traditionalists debated it, customers loved it, and sushi's global expansion accelerated. Today, sushi can be found almost everywhere, from convenience stores in Tokyo to high-end restaurants in New York, London, and Paris. Millions of people eat it every day. Yet its origins lie in a practical preservation technique developed thousands of years ago. Sushi wasn't invented as luxury food. It wasn't invented as fine dining. It was invented because people were trying to stop fish from spoiling. What began as a survival technique evolved into a global culinary phenomenon. The next time you eat a piece of sushi, remember, you're tasting the result of nearly 2,000 years of experimentation, adaptation, and cultural evolution. Not bad for a food that began as fish preserved beneath rice and stone.